I want to start with 9 tips or 9 steps. Your reading shared 8 steps, and that's right. There can be 8 steps, but one that I felt was not emphasized enough was to read the entire text. Before you can write about research, you have to understand it. And this can take a lot longer than most people realize. Only when you can clearly explain the study in your own words to someone else who hasn't read the article are you ready to write about it. If you try to read a new article from start to finish, you're going to get bogged down by a lot of detail. So instead, use your knowledge of your style format, such as APA, to find the main points. You want to briefly look at each section to identify the research questions, the reason for the study, the significance of the study, which is often in the introduction. Then you'll find the research questions or objectives or hypotheses that were tested, and then how they were tested by looking at the methods section, and then you'll report the results by including tables, figures, reading that information and interpreting it and seeing that you understand it, and then how the findings were interpreted. So that's the discussion, which can also be conclusions, tying back to the literature and your study, as well as recommendations for what the industry can do or what your discipline can do and what further research is needed. You can underline key sentences or write out the key points as you're scanning the document. And this can be done in the margins. And although an abstract can help you identify the main points, you can't rely on it exclusively because it contains very condensed information. And remember that you have to focus on all the parts of the text that are most relevant. And that abstract is usually 200 or 250 words. You're looking at a summary that's usually two pages. And so you're going to need more in-depth explanation of the theory and the methodology and findings. You can identify the genre of the text or the text pattern of organization. This can be something that goes from like general to specific, or it could be organized by like types of examples. But as you are taking notes, you really want to make sure that you don't plagiarize the author's words. You don't even want to use a few of the author's words if possible. And if you do use their words exactly, put them in quotation marks. To really avoid plagiarism, just take notes in your own words. Use short notes or summarizing key points in your own words really forces you to rewrite the ideas in your own words later. And if you find yourself sticking closely to the original language and making only minor changes to that wording, you probably don't understand the study enough. The next steps are for you to identify the main idea in each section and then write a 1-sentence summary, and then identify supporting ideas for each main idea so that you have that evidence, that detail that's needed. A lot of students ask how one can do that because a significant challenge in writing a summary is deciding what information or examples from an article or thesis or dissertation to include. So just remember that summaries are much shorter than the text itself, and you don't have the space to explain every point the author makes. And instead, you need to explain the author's main points and then find a few excellent examples that illustrate those points. So to help you identify your main ideas, think about these 4 sections of a manuscript. And in an introduction, look for the research question or research problem that's being addressed. And then our hypotheses, research questions, or objectives formulated. In methodology, what type of research was done? How was the data collected and analyzed? With results, what were the most important results? What were the hypotheses? Were they supported, or did the findings fail to support the hypothesis? And then with the discussion and conclusion, you look for the overall answer to the research question. What is it? And does the author explain those results in the conclusion? And then what are the implications of the research? Recommendations that can be made in research or in practice, as well as any important limitations to the study. These are some questions I use to guide when I'm selecting important information from each section. I ask myself, what's the problem or issue being addressed? Why is it important? What was done to solve it? How does the solution work? Who did it? How was it done? What were the results? And then sometimes it's, what is it about this research that's different, innovative, or advantageous that answers the research problem? And then that can help identify some significant new points to share. The next few steps include making your ideas accurate enough that it's in the same strength of claims and conclusions. So this means not only do you understand the information, but you can interpret it properly, and you're not using synonyms but might not be the same meaning for the study. And then it's okay for you to take note of what your reaction or thoughts are about the main ideas. And then if you know of other studies that can support the interpretation or the results of the researcher and the study that you're summarizing, it's okay to tie back to that work. And a lot of times you just continue to repeat this process and you go back and edit your notes. I like to have a Word file and I'll section it off, and I'll have 4 pages. Usually I start off with the introduction. And then the second page will be information I need on literature. Third page will be on methodology. Fourth page, findings, conclusions, discussion. It just kind of depends on how you want to divide your work. And then as I'm reading, I'm taking notes in those sections, and I can go back and refine them and edit them as you read. Because you'll notice that a lot of times, especially in dissertations and theses, there's a lot of repetition. But you might pick up new nuggets of information that are in chapter 3 that were in chapter 1. Or in chapter 5, that would be like a discussion, or chapter 6 discussion that you might not see until after the findings are presented. But you'll see tiebacks to the literature, the theory, and those chapters. So it can really help you just think of how to organize your content. And you can go back and revise as needed.